Well, hello and welcome to the third installment of YSM's Mythbusters webinar series. My name is Angela Solomos, and I'm the Vice President of Philanthropy here at YSM. Just a quick note that we are recording today's webinar. Before we dive into the myths we aim to bust today, I'd like to start by acknowledging the land on which YSM serves. At YSM, we acknowledge that we serve on the land that is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and in making this acknowledgement, we commit to demonstrating this truth through our ongoing work to bring inclusive prosperity and full participation in society for all people in Toronto. And we commit to this in all we do at YSM with thankful and respectful hearts. So thank you for joining us. We're really happy that you've decided to come to this webinar today. I want to just start with a bit of housekeeping. We will happily accept questions throughout the webinar, but we will be answering them at the end. And if we can't get through all the questions, just know that we are recording today's session. We'll be sharing the recording and the answers to all the questions, but we do hope that we will be able to get to as many of them as possible. So let's get started. This afternoon, we are exploring two common misperceptions that we hear and experience in conversations and interactions as we do our work here. These are that poor people are entitled and want everything done for them, and that poor people are lazy and responsible for their own circumstances. Now, if this is your first webinar, we welcome you into this space of learning today. And if you've been with us on this myth-busting journey from the beginning, you'll recognize that we've touched on these two myths already. In webinar number 1, we took the time to hear about a struggling family who's trying their best to work within the system designed to support them, but due to circumstances beyond their control, find themselves stuck. We painted this picture to help you see how even the most hardworking people can find themselves in circumstances they would have never designed for themselves. And then in webinar number 2, we dove in a little deeper. We wanted to show you how the social safety net, which was designed after the Second World War, is no longer working to get people out of poverty. But we also wanted to begin to share some of the good work already being done here at YSM and elsewhere that is already making a difference today. And so this is where we're going to pick up today's webinar. We're here to introduce you to YSM's community development team and their work in the vibrant and diverse community of Regent Park. Our panelists today will continue our conversation in hopes of showing you how hardworking people, when supported in the right ways, are doing amazing things to overcome their experiences of poverty, and how all of us in the community can play a role. So with that, I would like to introduce our host today, Paula Garcia, who is the Associate Director of Community Development at the Yonge Street Mission. Welcome, Paula.
Thank you, Angela. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. As Angela said, my name is Paula Garcia. I'm the Associate Director of Community Development at YSM. So I'm very happy to be your host today. Many of you might be familiar with the concept of community development, but some of you may not. One of the challenges with community development is that there isn't one single definition for it. At YSM, we've been working over the last 10 years or so on defining community development and working strategically to focus on building communities to ultimately fulfill our organizational vision, which you might be familiar with, which is to end chronic poverty in Toronto in one generation. As you may recall from our previous 2 webinars, and as Angela just pointed out, YSM has a variety of services and programs that support individuals, and we're changing individuals' lives one person at a time. I do have to say community development can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to understand. So today we're hoping that you can walk away with a greater understanding of what this means and how we do it at YSM. You'll get to hear directly from community leaders who will share their incredible stories of how they've worked not only to change their own lives and their family's future, but to transform communities. At YSM, we practice what's called asset-based community development. You might be wondering what that is, and we're going to get into it. You'll get to hear from some of our staff and community leaders. But for us, what that means as a Christian-based organization is that we work on the basis of believing in people. We believe that they are remarkable and have remarkable skills, assets, and ideas, and we believe that they're capable of transforming their communities. However, we know that in order to do this at a wider level, no one can do it alone, right? We must all work in partnership with one another. We also recognize that our communities still face a great number of barriers. It's just crime, lack of access to resources, discrimination, isolation, just to name a few. And what is the goal of community development in this? Our goal is to strengthen the community by building their capacity so they can address their own challenges, so they can design and implement their own solutions for change. Who better than them to do this, right? So our role as a community development team is not to provide a service or a handout. Our role is to partner up with them and support them along the way, giving them the platforms, helping them build the skills, access networks or resources that they need so that they can bring those solutions that they've envisioned to life. Today, as I mentioned, we're very excited to share more of what this looks like on the ground. And I'd like to introduce one of our community capacity builders, Hesang. Welcome, Hesang.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hesang, a community capacity builder in the community development team. I'm supporting resident-led groups and initiatives in Regent Park.
Thank you, Hesang. Could you tell us what asset-based community development looks like on the ground? What does this look like on a daily basis?
Yes, sure. How this model affects our daily tasks for our community development team is that we walk alongside residents to support, not to lead them. This is very important that we remember. We do not approach them by saying we have a solution for them, but on the contrary, we engage with community members and resident-led groups with an intention to look for their own strengths and potentials to support them in fostering resident leadership, partnership development, and community ownership. To help you understand better, I can give you 2 examples. First one is that I am supporting a resident-led group in Regent Park called the Employment and Economic Development Working Group. In this group, I support resident leaders, members, and partners to come up with their own priorities and action plans to work together toward achieving their mandate of creating employment and entrepreneur opportunities. I'm also supporting women's groups called the Women's Development Network for immigrant women to come together to build their own skills and to run their own small businesses. I work alongside the members by supporting the process of business planning, skills development, as well as providing mentoring and coaching. I will have a chance to talk more about this later in this webinar.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Hesang. And I certainly look forward to our viewers hearing more about this work. So as we were saying, social services and relief services are incredibly important to support people through an experience of poverty. But actually moving people towards stability takes more than relief services. It takes people coming together with their own assets, whether that's residents bringing their skills and ideas to the table, or agencies and institutions bringing a variety of resources to the table and working together towards a common goal. Our team today works in 2 communities, Regent Park and Yonge Southwestern. Today, you'll hear more about our work in Regent Park. As you'll see in the video that we'll share shortly, the dream of our revitalized Regent Park is in theory a great idea. Beautiful buildings, a mix of socioeconomic backgrounds, unique businesses and shops, seemingly an ideal environment to live, work, and play. However, about half of the residents in this community still struggle daily to make ends meet in order to thrive. Enjoy the video.
Welcome to Regent Park. If you drive past this neighborhood near Gerrard and Parliament in Toronto's East End, you will see a community in transition. The neighborhood was built in the 1940s as a public housing project designed with the idea of a garden city. But it wasn't long before this plan backfired, with quiet streets becoming havens for illegal behavior. Today, almost 70 years later, the neighborhood houses the densest population of low-income people in Canada. Regent Park is undergoing a massive redevelopment to revitalize this part of our city. All the old buildings have either been replaced or will be within the next 5 to 10 years. And to those on the outside looking in, it seems like an ideal place to live, work, and raise a family. However, despite the shiny new buildings, the prime real estate, and the vibrant new energy that is now a big part of this downtown neighborhood, there are still challenges that this mixed income community is facing. Residents face continual economic hardship, racism, and negative stereotyping. These stark statistics led YSM to prioritize community development as a key pillar of our ongoing work in Toronto. We knew that building a mixed income community would be complex and would require the hearts, minds, and hands of many to realize a truly cohesive and inclusive community. Today, YSM's community development team is active in 21 collaborative partnerships and supports 15 community-led initiatives in Regent Park. The revitalization of Regent Park includes a physical development plan and a social development plan, or SDP. This plan is a roadmap to achieving social conditions necessary for building a successful mixed-use community. The plan brings resident leaders together with agencies like YSM to work in partnership towards improving safety, employment, and economic development, communication between stakeholders, and community building. Engaged residents and agencies in the community are convening to share existing talents, assets, and opportunities that exist in the community, and are working to build the relationships necessary to unite these groups and bring the vision for Regent Park to life.
Wow. Well, you're going to be learning more about our community members in Regent Park today. I'd like to welcome Ismail Afra at this point. Ismail is a resident of Regent Park of over 15 years, and he's a remarkable community leader and advocate. Hi, welcome, Ismail.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Ismail, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience coming to Canada in Regent Park?
Yes. Hi, my name is Ismail Afra, and I'm a Toronto Community Housing resident leader, and I'm passionate about advocating for Regent Park and bringing positive change to my community. I'm also a twin, and I love movies, especially Korean movies. I was born in Somalia, but left my home country in 1993 because of the civil war that was happening, and moved to Kenya when I was about 9 years old. I came to Canada in 2001 at the age of 15. And at that time, the first thing that was done was we were assessed for our English level, for our grade level. And I attended a bridging ESL program for about a year. And then an exciting and challenging high school life began for me. I remember specifically grade 9 was particularly difficult because not only were we trying to learn the content, but also the language. I remember, for instance, in grade 9 chemistry class, my first exam, midterm exam I got about 17%. It was very devastating. But I remember I leveraged my memorization skills and scored 85 at the end of the year. This was the same mark as the highest grade student. It was then that I knew that I was not less smart than any student. Also, at about grade 11, this is when I first came to fall in love with ideas and learning. I got introduced to sociology and learned about different concepts and ideas such as patriarchy, colonialism, capitalism, Marxism, and other systems and structures of oppression. These structures of oppression multiply the conditions people live in more than the individual choices that they make. And to me, this was an exciting time because my mind was expanding and I was learning a lot of different things. And at the time, my high school teacher, Mr. Michwiecki, said that I would enjoy university. The narrative at the time for students and my friends was that university was hard, and was not something for us to seriously consider or hope for. That stayed with me for a long time. And I went to adult education to upgrade my grades and to attend university. I went to the University of Toronto studying philosophy and religion. And of course, university was a roller coaster as well. It was during my studies at a time when I was not feeling so well and felt a little bit hopeless that I began to do community work and volunteer in my neighborhood. And this is when I came across a part-time job with access to recreation, a grassroots group that was supported by Yonge Street Mission. And this also led me to start to volunteer with the neighborhood association. So that's a little bit of my background.
Wow, that's incredible, Ismail. And I would like to remind our viewers of the two myths that we're busting today, right? So if you remember, myth one is that poor people are entitled and want everything done for them. And myth two is that poor people are lazy and responsible for their circumstances. So I'd like you to keep that in mind as you hear Ismail's story and the other stories that you'll hear today, because they really prove that these myths are in fact just a myth. Ismail, can you tell us more about how you first got involved with community development and with YSM?
Yes, I got involved in community work with YSM through a part-time job. As I said before, I was supporting a grassroots group called Access to Recreation. The group's goal was to increase local access to recreation for Regent Park and surrounding neighborhoods. And it started with Toronto Community Housing Mothers, who wanted residents and families and children in the community to be able to participate in recreation, and specifically the highly competitive aquatic programs at the local facility. Yonge Street Mission supported the group through Joel Clausen, who is part of the community development team. This is, I would say, my second love. My first love was philosophy and ideas. And this is where my second love came to grow with my experience with this group and the work we did together. My love for advocating and bringing about positive change for community. I remember the contract was about 15 to 20 hours a week, but even though it was 15, 20 hours, I poured my heart and soul into the project. My critical analytical skills came to a great practical use here. The idea, clarifying problems, researching possible solutions, developing strategies, and activities that lead to the goals we wanted to achieve. For example, I had watched a whole year of videos of city council committees trying to trace how proposals and motions were crafted and brought to committees. With the group, I learned that it takes the whole strength of everybody to bring about change. For instance, I remember at one press conference, I remember speaking about the issue we were facing at a policy level, and it made everybody feel bored, and reporters and those watching were paying little attention to my remarks. And this is when a group member spoke about her challenges she was facing. She talked about her child, trying to register them for the programs that she lined up at the community center 10 p.m. the night before and stayed there till morning. This made, of course, the headlines, and you can see the picture in the Toronto Star that came. Through the work of the group, we crafted a proposal and brought it to council. We organized, we had young people deputing, and we had our pilot approved at the end. Today, more than 400 children are learning how to swim through the program. Through access to recreation, I learned about how to effectively advocate. And what I would say is that it takes a committed group of people with a goal and a belief that change is possible. Of course, research, strategy, and having a champion from the institution you seek to change. We had our counselors supporting us in that effort. And also, and I think this is really important, you need a dedicated organizational support person, building capacity and holding some of the administrative pieces, because all of us and the residents are all volunteers, so you need an institutional support. And this is where Yonge Street Mission came to life and supported the group, specifically Joel Clausen, who was very important to the work. As a community development worker, Joel believes and trusts that people have knowledge, experience, and capacity. He adds to that experience and capacity and looks to identify where capacity is needed. And he always encouraged us and allowed leadership to come from residents as opposed to doing for residents. Me and the group learned a lot from Joel. I remember we meet back to back on a weekly basis, learning about how to better facilitate, developing a budget from scratch, defining and creating work plans, and most importantly, empathizing and not enemy-fying those who make decisions, because we're an advocacy group and we want to bring about change. And one of the most important lessons is not to think of those who you're advocating with as enemies, right? And this was a very important lesson because you need them to make the decisions. So this was some of my early tastes in community work.
That's incredible, Ismail. And you're really bringing what asset-based community development is all about, right? And I love some of the things you said, like it takes believing that change is possible and believing in people's assets. What an accomplishment for the Access to Recreation group. By the way, for those of you who have been joining us over the last 2 webinars, you might recall meeting Joel at the first webinar, and he was also in the trailer for this webinar. So you have met our wonderful Joel before. Ismail, I love how you put it as well. You said it takes the strength of everyone to bring about change. So truly, we can't do it alone. Why do you think community development is so important, Ismail? And how does it work in Regent Park?
Yes, in Regent Park, we are going through $1 billion revitalization. And revitalization is both a physical transformation and a social transformation. And new state-of-the-art facilities are being built, houses, parks, and mixed income communities being created. This is, of course, a leveraging moment for change. Community development is the idea that you build community with community. You need to have principles and practices that see residents as strengths and experiences and knowledge that lead to greater change. Not a lot of organizations have a community development mindset. Sometimes residents are seen as people who receive a service, dependent, and require assistance. This can, of course, lead to thinking that they're not capable nor responsible. Therefore, things should be done for them, right? Nor have they the capacity to do things for themselves. So that's an easy mentality that comes along in the sector. However, YSM is not like that. And of course, Regent Park is a highly active community with residents, both TCAT and market, committing their time and volunteering in community. A good example of how community development is done well in the community is the Community Benefit Coalition. So community benefits are additional benefits that are negotiated with the developer to support local employment and other community priorities. At the time, this was about 3 to 4 years ago, the Regent Park Neighborhood Association, which began and was building up, approached Yonge Street Mission to be our organizational partner, to trustee funds, to provide support staff. So at the time, YSM had dedicated a staff to our coalition. This was the community partnership coordinator, Janella, who's part of the community development team. With Janella and the coalition, we met back to back on a weekly basis for what we call for 3 years, advocating for community benefits. We hold strategy meetings, community-wide meetings, prep meetings, and this was spaces where organizations and residents collaborated, right? It wasn't a siloed space, it was a collaborative space. And because of that work, we secured for the community $26.75 million for Regent Park. And not only that, we made sure that we successfully negotiated for a community-led process for allocating those funds. This was unheard of across the city. YSM is community-minded, right? And again, it shows that, another example is that, remember when I said about revitalization having 2 pillars, a physical and a social, and at the time, the social development plan was designed, and we asked organizations across the neighborhood to align their work to help implement it. And YSM was one of those key organizations that had done that with their community development team. Each member today of their team supports a pillar of that work. And this is why I believe community development is important. You work with and you strengthen resident capacity. You collaborate with residents And of course, great results are sure to follow because of that process.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's incredible, Ismail. What an accomplishment and an achievement for the community, right? 26.8 million dollars, all thanks to your efforts. This is, once again, what community development is all about, especially asset-based community development. It's believing in the assets and the skills of our community and coming alongside them to support in designing and implementing their own ideas for sustainable change from the ground up. Ismail, from your perspective, what is the role of agencies like YSM and of community members to support their community to thrive?
I think not a lot of organizations do what YSM does, from delivering relief services to stabilization supports to community development supports. It's a holistic level of supports, and I think that's a theory for success, a way for success. I believe organizations like YSM should be courageous because it's not easy to step up of ending poverty within a generation. It's such courageous vision that could lead to momentums of organizing, facilitating, and celebrating great impact. Across the city of Toronto, there are lots of talented people and amazing organizations. The ability to convene all of them for a common purpose, shared understanding, and sharing practices and processes. I think the role of organizations like YSM is to support residents like they've done with access to recreation. The role is also to collaborate like they've done with community benefits. And I think the role is also to lead and align their work with community priorities. But most importantly, is to be courageous, to have a courageous vision that helps build momentum across the city. And I believe that they're doing that. I look forward to seeing how that model is scaled up across the city through partnerships and networks, because I think that could have a huge impact as it had in Regent Park. But everyone, not just YSM, has to do their part and use their strengths to help make things better. And while you're doing better, of course, it's important to realize to do no harm as well, and to be open to learning, to be flexible, because bringing strength is also, you have to be mindful of your power. And also you have to be patient, because this work is a marathon. And for me, as I say, is a several sprints of a marathon to end poverty. Whether it's your time or energy or money, you need to contribute into making this neighborhood, this city, and the world better. Don't underestimate the talents you contribute to community. Volunteering with local organizations, with communities. I would say pick any social issue that matters to you and support that effort for change. It's an exciting time to live, and it's good to make others feel the same.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ismail, for sharing your story, for taking the time to join us today, and for sharing how community change can take place when we all bring our assets to the table and partner with one another. Like you said, it takes believing and it takes the strength of all. I'm always learning from you, Ismail. You're always getting me excited to continue to do this work. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, wasn't that amazing? What we just heard is that there are so many assets in the community, especially in a community as diverse as Regent Park. There are people with skills, experience, a variety of resources, connections, or networks. They can provide practical help to others in the community. We're going to be switching gears now to focus on our second myth, that poor people are lazy and want everything done for them. One of the challenges that residents in Regent Park continue to face today, as we were seeing in the video, is the lack of opportunities to generate an income, whether that's through traditional employment or through entrepreneurship. As you may know, many new Canadians arrive here with entrepreneurial aspirations. They have practical skills, they have a desire to work, but oftentimes circumstances prohibit them from doing so. Our community development team at YSM is committed to supporting those individuals. I'd like to invite Heseng to the conversation now. She can join us again, and she's going to be highlighting this reality for many of the people in our community that she has the privilege of working with. Welcome back, Heseng.
Hi.
So Heseng, this myth that people are lazy and don't want to work, what's your perspective on that? And how does that connect with some of the groups that you work with?
I'm very excited to talk about this myth, but before we jump into the answer, I would like to share some of the barriers that women we support face. I'm hoping that this will help the viewers get a better understanding of the work we do. In general, statistics show that immigrant women experience more difficulties in employment and they earn less income than Canadian-born women. The women I'm working with also face their unique barriers in education, language, skills training, access to childcare, and domestic responsibilities. Some women are also going through hardships because they are the only caregivers of their families. Having too many responsibilities and experiencing lack of resources and social support, women often report distress and health issues. In particular, skilled immigrant women who share that their credentials and professional experiences are not reflected in Canadian society. This really makes their situation more challenging to enter the workforce. In the midst of these circumstances, YSM's community development team has been supporting immigrant women in Regent Park and worked with resident leaders in the community to establish the Women's Development Network, also called the WDN, which is a resident-led initiative that provides opportunities for women to overcome barriers together, empowering many women to use their skills and talents. Through this support, small businesses have been formed based on their own chosen areas. We are currently supporting 6 small groups: catering, jewelry making, beauty, sewing, gardening, and childminding. For these groups, our team has been providing support in business planning, group facilitation, capacity building, and coaching. I think this is a good time that I can introduce Sultana, who joined YSM's programs 15 years ago as a new immigrant and became a core member of the Women's Development Network's catering group. She will tell us about her journey with YSM. Let's watch.
Hi, I am Sultana and I am a hard worker. Before coming to Canada, I worked as a rural development organizer in Bangladesh for poor women. I have been a member of the WDN catering group for 8 years. In 2004, I moved here with my family from Bangladesh. I live in social housing and in Regent Park for 18 years. I love this community because we love each other. We had good job in Bangladesh. My husband was an agriculturist, but when we first came to Canada with my husband and my son, it was hard to find job. My husband had to go to college again here in Canada because we couldn't find job here at first. Also, I didn't know English, just a little bit. So I didn't go outside. I stay at home and support my family. I didn't home where to get help. But one day, one lady told me, go to YSM Sultana for English classes and have conversation class. Other ladies liked because YSM was very close to my house, but other government courses far away. When my son went to school, I come to YSM conversation class first to improve my English skill, and then I was able to go to cooking class and computer class. I joined the WDN catering group and we got training for a food handling, small business and leadership training. I developed cooking skill and learned a lot finally, we started a business together with my group members. Because of this skill developed, I got a part-time job at YSM Kitchen to work 2 times a week for 6 years. During COVID time, I had health issue, so I had to quit my job in 2020. I got another job at a school because of my experience from YSM Kitchen and WDN Catering Group. In my resume, all experience came from WDN Catering and the food handling certificate. WDN helped us to meet together and share our problems. We learn together and make money together. Without them, it was impossible to do everything myself. We go out to tell other ladies to join our groups. We got to meet as a group and we made a catering vendor. Catering groups help us to earn money and support my family, and all other ladies, other groups too can earn money and support their families. I feel proud of my experience from WDN and YSM Kitchen. I am very thankful for YSM and WDN. Thank you.
Oh, I just love Sultana's story, Hisang. Thank you so much for sharing that. What really struck me in her story is how she describes her progress as a new immigrant toward gaining experiences and qualifications through YSM support and the Women's Development Network, right? So starting with her relief services, being brand new to Canada. I know her story personally as well, as we worked with her for many years. And her family, they've been able to access different supports and programs at YSM throughout the years. And then she was able to move into creating change for herself, really taking ownership. As she said, she started to join those English conversation classes, the leadership classes, computer classes. And then she took that out into the community and supported other groups, other women, so they could continue to create change in the community. That's just amazing. So, Hisang, can you tell us a little bit more about this? What's the role of YSM in this?
Sure. YSM has been playing a crucial role in building Sultana's career path as a successful entrepreneur. YSM has opened up a safe and inclusive gathering space for women to come together and make friends while learning from each other to expand to a network, providing peer support and social support as well. With this support, women have gone through an empowerment process of developing their skills and obtaining required certifications, as well as gaining work experiences. It is important to note that although Sultana is a very educated and skilled professional, she shares that she experienced difficulties in finding jobs in Canada. YSM recognizes this gap and has been working with many immigrant women who need bridging support like Sultana to find their own pathways toward securing a sustainable income source that are suitable in their own circumstances.
That's amazing. Again, let's go back to the myth, right? So the myth says poor people are lazy and they don't want to work. They want everything done for them. What are your thoughts on this, Hisang?
Thank you for going back to this question again. Yes, I'd like to answer that I don't believe this myth is true. I can say this because of my experiences with the WDN, Women's Development Network groups. Everyone I meet is very committed to developing their skills and growing their businesses. They're working very hard to achieve their goal of becoming sustainable and autonomous small businesses in the midst of changing circumstances. If we go back to the times prior to COVID, groups had actively participated in income generating activities. The jewelry group participated in local market opportunities to sell their handcrafted products. And the beauty group also opened spa services to organizations, including YSM. The catering group provided catering services to many businesses and organizations. But sadly, the impact of the pandemic created difficulties for all our groups in finding retail spaces and getting orders. At the same time, they were taking care of their kids staying at home. However, even under the lockdown measures, members developed their online communication skills to adapt to the changing online environment. During that time, they focused on planning for their next steps to prepare for the reopening. Currently, based on this grounding work, the groups are finally back to their weekly in-person meetings and activities. They're working hard to improve their product quality, to learn new techniques, and to participate in local market opportunities as well. The catering group has been making a very impressive progress in their revenue generation by reconnecting with their former customers and building a new network.
That's amazing. Yeah, the Women's Development Network is such a beautiful example of community development, right? And I actually remember speaking with one of the women once, and she said something along the lines of, the first time that I received money for something that I made with my own hands, the skills that I had brought from home, was life-changing. It was so empowering. And she said, I knew that I wanted other women in the community to experience that. And she did. She went on to create other opportunities for women in the neighborhood to do this. That's just amazing. Our community development team is definitely so fortunate and so proud to be able to support individuals like Sultana who want to create this kind of long-lasting change. Thank you so much, Hesang, for sharing those stories. I hope that those have helped our viewers get a better understanding of what community development looks like on the ground and how important it is in fulfilling our YSM vision to end chronic poverty in Toronto in one generation. Thank you, Hesang. So to our viewers, this wraps up our conversation for today. Thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to your questions. Angela, over to you.
Thank you so much, Hesang, Ismail, Paula. What an amazing conversation. I'm immersed in this work, and I learned so much today by listening to you all. A few things that stood out for me, gosh, so many moments, but I think the one thing that I'll take away today is to never underestimate the power of the community and people's ability to change and desire to change. Thank you so much to all of our panelists today for opening our eyes to this incredible work. It is 12:42. Our webinar goes till 12:45, so I will ask the first question, but also there have been a few questions throughout the webinar, and we're happy to stay on the line until 1 o'clock or until we finish answering the questions. If you have to drop off, though, we completely understand. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we will share a recording of this video as well as the answers to all of the questions. So it'd be great if we could get all of our panelists back up on the screen. And I can ask the first question. All right, our superstar panel. The first one is for Ismail, it's for you. You talked about community development contributing to ending chronic poverty in Toronto. How do you see this happening on the ground? Is this really true?
Yes, and I think it's really important to capitalize on the momentum and energy that's already been done here in Regent Park. There's, I believe, courageous visions like ending poverty within a generation comes out of a practice of community building and an experience of community building and network building, for instance, across the city. As I said before, there's lots of talents and organizations working on ending poverty. It requires shared vision, shared practices. For example, a shared evaluation tool, just like YSM has been working on in terms of showcasing progress. And I think convening conversations across the city, network building, and facilitating and evaluating progress throughout is really important. And I think the holistic approach that YSM takes in Regent Park could be scaled up across the city. And I think partnerships and collaboration, it will get you there as well.
Okay, partnership and collaboration. Yeah, you also mentioned earlier, everyone has to do their part. We can't do it alone. So I guess that really answers the question. Thank you, Ismail. Okay, 12:45, and we're going to keep going. The next question is directed toward Haesang. The question is, you mentioned YSM supports the community to progress on their economic goals through groups like the WDN. I'd like to understand this a little better, as well as how YSM supports this.
Yes, thanks for this question. This is very good. YSM has learned so far that from our own experiences that we must create real pathways to economic stability in order to change the lives we serve. This is why we have been working on building wealth creation models. The question we ask in creating these models is that how we can create bridges to good jobs and small business opportunities. In answering this question, we recognize that flexible work conditions and entrepreneurship opportunities are viable options for many individuals in our communities who want to progress on their economic goals because of their barriers. YSM is working on bridging this gap once again and providing customized support to community members, as we have seen in Sultana's story.
Thanks, Haesang, for that answer. Another question that came in was just a clarification question. So maybe Paula, you can answer this one. What are the 2 pillars of revitalization? I missed that. So perhaps someone else missed it as well. And I answered it privately to the asker, but maybe you can also just remind everyone, Paula.
Absolutely. So the revitalization has 2 components. There's the physical redevelopment, so all the new shiny buildings. And then there's the social development. And the social development actually has 4 pillars: safety, employment and economic development, communications, and community building. Hope that answers the question.
And so the social piece is about the people, right? The people who are living there and their wellness and their ability to succeed. Thanks for the question.
It's the roadmap for seeing Regent Park turn into what it was envisioned.
Thanks, Paula. Okay, we've got another one. Haesang, this is for you. The question is, I have seen entrepreneurship gaining attention as a solution to poverty. What I heard today is that there is an increasing need for entrepreneurial supports in Regent Park. The question is, what do entrepreneurs really need?
Yes, very good question. Thank you again. Over the past few years, YSM has actually facilitated consultation meetings with entrepreneurs in the surrounding areas to uncover their needs. What we've heard so far is that there is a huge need for entrepreneurs in the community to have access to spaces such as retail, workshop, and meeting spaces. This idea of creating a business hub is part of our vision. We envision that this hub will be a place where entrepreneurs and all community members have access to necessary supports like YSM is supporting, and to launch their business ideas and grow their businesses. I hope this answers the question.
Our vision of a hub. I think there may be another webinar coming that might dive into that a little bit deeper.
Hopefully.
Right? We'll see what we can do. Okay, 12:48. Here's another one for you, Paula. The question is, I'm still a little confused. Oh, is there a simple way to describe what community development work is? Oh, this is good. So I can explain it to others. I'm inspired, but I want to be able to talk about this without sounding confused myself. Oh, such a good question.
Definitely. It is one that we have been working on at YSM and as a community development team. How do we explain this clearly? I guess you could say community development is all about supporting communities to transition from surviving to thriving. It's to sum up, to strengthen the community by building their capacity so they can address their own challenges. It is partnering up, joining forces with them supporting them to design and to implement their own solutions that will benefit the community at large.
Well, I hope that helped clear up that confusion. I am seeing a lot of people dropping off. So what we'll do is we will wrap at this time and remind everyone that the rest of your questions will be answered and this video will be shared with you. So I want to wrap up by inviting you all to the next webinar, Behind the Scenes, A Day in the Life at the Mission, on Sunday, November the 27th. This is not a lunch and learn like today and the previous two, but rather a Sunday evening, because we're going to have a bit of a celebration of the Yonge Street Mission's work over the last year. We hope that you can join us for that, and of course, more information to follow. So as we wrap up today's great conversation, I just want to thank our panelists, Paula, Hisang, and Ismail, for joining us and for opening our eyes and helping us to understand the work that you are all doing in the community. We're so grateful to you. And also to say thank you to all of our viewers. Thanks for being here, for joining us on this journey, the third webinar in our series. We look forward to seeing you the next time. Bye-bye.